Hey everyone, and welcome to the video. First off, I'd like to thank the Naraka team for giving me the opportunity to make this video, and for all the other amazing work they do with the game and community. It's truly the best community I've ever been a part of, and by far my favorite game to date. And so, for this video, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at some of the games of RoyHiHi from the solos qualification rounds. RoyHiHi being VNGC's solo player representing the VN region at this year's world stage. Now, as you probably know, Roy, I think I'm going to call him Roy from now on, since it's a little bit easier. But Roy did in fact qualify for the finals, so let's jump right in and take a look at this footage and see if we can break it down. So, off the start, I think this is probably a good thing to look at. Roy's looking at the map here and he's trying to figure out where the best place to land is, obviously, since big stakes and choosing where you land is extremely important, especially in a tournament environment. Not only does it allow you to get early kills, potentially, if that's what you're looking to do. If you're in a later game in the day and you're trying to make up those last few points to make sure that you do as best as you can, going aggressive early can always be a really good plan. But at the same time, getting a slower start and securing yourself a good base, like good loot, good weapon, armor, some resources, and then afterwards going in to try and pick up these kills, potentially get a good third party, picking up a free kill without having to commit too much or take too many risks. Always a really good plan as well. So it depends on the player, depends on your personality, depends on your play style, and also, most importantly, I would say, it depends on your character. Character choice is so important. And as you all know, we have these hero point systems in place, so you can't play the same character every game. You can only play 5 characters in the 6-game series, or you have to play a minimum of 5 characters, sorry, in a 6-game series, and you can play 1 character twice. So for this first game, Roy has opted to go for Tumulk. And I think for some, I don't know how they manage it, but they all manage to end up playing similar characters in the same games, and you end up seeing lots of the same character in specific rounds. So for example, this round, I would assume there could be quite a few Tumulks, considering he's playing Tumulk, or at least that's what I've seen so far watching these games from Worlds. So right here, as you can see, we have 4 gold zones, 2 of them being reasonably small, or 3 of them being small areas, the top bit of the map here, this one off to the side, and then we have mines down here, Shadow Jade Mine. Pretty good place to spawn mines, but it can be dangerous, because inside the mine there's a lot of tight spaces that you can get caught in if you're not careful, but at the same time, you can always juke people pretty well in there. You can lose your enemy, lose your opponent if you need to, if you're on the back foot. So, as we can see here, Roy's not looking to go for mines. I think he's looking to try and go for a slightly more populated area. And also another thing, spawning up here in the top, you're going to end up fighting more people, finding more people, and that is something that you want to be doing, because kills make a lot of difference. Kill points make a big difference in these games. Every point counts. But yeah, so he's been hovering here, but then he opts to change at the last second. Let's pause it right here. So right here, he swaps here at the last second. Let's see if I can catch the frame. There's a lot of people seem to swap at the last second as well. So this person that he'd been hovering over swaps at the last second, but Roy had no idea that was going to happen. If he'd actually managed to spawn here, that would have been really huge for him, because then he would have had this entire area to himself for a short period of time before these two either killed each other and rotated over here, or both of them ended up rotating over here because of there being a bit of a lack of loot up here. But yeah, he opts to go to Celestra, and a non-gold zone, but still, it's Celestra. There's a lot of loot to be had, even if it's not high tier. So he's opting to go for a slightly more passive approach, which is very normal, quite frankly. Very, 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 very normal on your first game of the day, which I think this is. This is the first game on one of the group stage days. So it makes sense, you know, you're warming up on the day. I mean, he's probably already warmed up, but you're getting into that tournament mentality. You're looking to take a slightly more massive start in your first game, you know, get some loot, and then potentially look to go up here and try and catch some of these people fighting. You can potentially loot a little bit and then run straight over here, but the likelihood is these two will either one of these two will either killed the other, gotten their rage for their ult charge, and be actually in an advantage, especially considering that this is a high tier loot zone. He might have a loot advantage, or one of them's run away and the others then had the loot zone to themselves. But there is a third up here and two up here as well, so there's fights to be third partied, I think. So it's definitely a viable strategy what he's going for here. He also could have potentially gone over here in the bottom left. Pretty good loot. There's also a bell right here that would reveal the area around him, giving him the ability to track anybody close by. But there is also a bell here, so I mean, it's preference at the end of the day. But yeah. Celestra also being a pretty good spot if somebody else had happened to have clicked somewhere around here. There's a lot of buildings, a lot of corners, a lot of avenues of escape. So if he did get caught, he can quite easily juke his opponent and loop them around buildings to prevent himself from getting caught. But yeah, so he does end up going for Celestra here. A few people going down in the bottom left. Again, taking a passive approach. Pretty normal, to be expected at this point of the day. First game of the day, you know. It is what it is. Right, so let's jump forward a bit here. Right, so Roy has now, he spawned in at 23:16 or something along those lines, and is already out of Celestra, grappling out within about a minute of having spawned in. So pretty good timing. This is definitely a good thing to pay attention to. Loot paths and just general pathing around the map, like the macro play. The fact that he also went directly to the Firefly spawn that's just outside Celestra right here. It's right next to this tree. Very handy little Firefly spawn if you're ever in Celestra, and the time of day is either dusk or night. You can always grab yourself a Firefly right here, if you are in need of it. So he runs over here. He's heading off to where these other three players landed, and is likely looking to get a third party of sorts. Let's put the volume on here. So yeah, about a minute and a little bit. He's got himself some purple dual blades, blue pistol, blue armor. Pretty good position to be in. And he's looking to find these players. He's scanning the area with his grapple so that he can look through the foliage, giving himself a better line of sight. Yeah. Oh, looks like he hears something here. Going in with the quick 1-2. Just for the F. Now this F, pretty risky. I'm gonna play it through the one time and then go back and then analyze the fight a little bit slower. Gets the parry. Lovely. Into an F. A clean kill here, clean kill. Ego taken down. We have a third. Ooh, no grapple cancel on the LMB. Charging, goes for the overhold, parry bait. But due to the enemy Tumulk, oh well, Tumulk ult being a soft combo breaker, allows him to input buffer it just after having parried and been baited into parry to protect himself, protect himself from the 50-50 or the gamble that he had to make, the risk that he made or that he took. Right, so let's head back here. Let's go back here and break this down step by step. Right, so he drops down, pulls out the pistol, always a good strategy. Pull out your ranged weapon before actually committing to a fight in melee range, allowing you to potentially gain an advantage before taking any risk at all, by going in and gaining that advantage, taking neutral, taking control of the neutral and allowing yourself to then push the advantage. So here he pushes forwards, blindly going in for this RMB into a second RMB, goes for the hold, tries to bait out a parry. The enemy Tumulk decides to completely disengage, take the double tap dodge back, or take the double dodge back. He then goes in for the hold LMB. Roy, having gone for another RMB, dodges, trying to protect himself from the half charge. Enemy Tumulk could have held his attack, held his LMB, and then released it before it got to the first charge state of the blue focus, allowing him to take his turn back after Roy had gone for the initial light attack. So Roy, trying to protect himself from that, dodges backwards, and then because he tap dodges backwards, he knows that he's not going to be able to parry in time, because as we know, at the end of parrying, or no, at the end of tap dodges, sorry, you can't act, as in you can't do an action as fast as you would be able to after a hold dodge, for example. So right here, goes for the RMB, enemy Tumulk goes in and holds blue. If he had half charged it, he could have caught him there, but Roy, anticipating this, goes for the tap dodge instead. And then right here, he knows he's not going to be able to parry unless, as long as this enemy Tumulk times his blue focus release correctly at the right timing. So he uses his F to avoid the gamble. But because of this, because of the F, because of the fact that at the end of the animation you're a little bit stuck, I mean, you kind of are, but at the same time, he jumps up here and grabs the wall. I think right here he was kind of put into a bad situation. I think potentially the better option would have been to double tap dodge after the initial part, and then potentially go for another pistol shot, avoiding this situation entirely. Because when he does this, he puts himself in the air, and he puts himself in a state in which he has to choose, or like potentially guess, you know, because this enemy Tumulk can, since he has a dagger, charge the horizontal attack, release it, and then catch him in the air at the end of the animation. So Roy is then left to anticipate whether or not he's going to release it, and if he does, and he parries whilst in the air, he can then be punished for it. But if he doesn't parry, and he doesn't release the blue focus, then he's chilling, you know? He could have gone for a jump RMB. What he tried to do was grab onto the ceiling and scale rush away to try and avoid it, but enemy Tumulk manages to catch him before he can do that. So he does take a chunk of damage, and then being stuck in this little corner next to this doorway, because there's a little lip on the wall preventing you from moving if you're tucked right into it, he's forced to ult. He's forced to ult because he's in a bit of a bad spot here, and he needs to try and salvage the situation as soon as possible. Plus, utilizing his ult as early as possible is always going to be a good idea, considering that it's reasonably early on into the game, and he's gone and picked up a Firefly, and he's likely got ult advantage on anyone he's fighting at this point in the game, unless they've already killed somebody. So right here, goes for the parry. It was a little bit out of range, but as you do, you typically do parry. Gauging the space can be a little bit difficult at times. He throws his F down, trying to catching the Tomahawk in the F. Really good play here because the dagger RMB is a very long animation, very long attack. And since he's just thrown his ultimate down with the enemy Tomahawk inside of it, the enemy Tomahawk is slowed. This status effect slow, removing all of his stamina and reducing the regeneration speed of his stamina bar, which then means that he can't dodge out and cancel this attack. So essentially what he does is secure himself a blue focus release onto the enemy Tomahawk. So enemy Tomahawk now also using his ult, looking to try and salvage this situation again. Roy throwing out Fs, trying to put down some pressure. Gets this parry off on the first stage. So right here, he actually has the wisps from the Tomahawk ult, or from the enemy Tomahawk ult, because he has V3 and because of this Tomahawk ult interaction. And manages to extend his parry riposte into another blue focus after having done it. So another reason why Ego, the enemy Tomahawk, decides to release this blue focus is because he knows that Roy and himself don't have their F abilities available. They've both got their wisps flying around them because they've both just walked through the Tomahawk ult that Ego put down, meaning that neither of them can break out of a combo that either of them do to each other. So, because of that, the idea of releasing a blue focus is far more risky. So, in Roy's head, he could be thinking, well, this enemy Tomahawk, he's not got his combo breaker. So if he releases a blue focus attack and I parry it, he's going to take a lot of damage. He's going to take a big chunk of damage, as you're about to see, and lose the fight. So, like, surely he's far less likely to release this blue focus because he's taking a big risk. But because of this, like, concept, the enemy Tomahawk, knowing this, knowing that, giving Roy the respect that he deserves as a player, knowing that he's going to know this, he's going to understand this concept, and so he, you could say, expects him to expect this, and therefore not want to try and parry his blue focus attack. So Ego takes the gamble and thinks, okay, he's gonna expect me not to release, because if I do and I get parried, I'm gonna take a big chunk of damage and lose the fight. So I'm gonna release the blue focus because he's not all that likely to try and parry it. However, obviously this mind game can literally go back and forth infinitely. Roy, knowing that Ego knows that he knows that the whole idea is just a bit mad, isn't it? But knowing that he knows that he knows that he knows that he's going to expect, or he could expect him to release the blue focus because of this, or not to, because of the same reason. So at the end of the day, it is a bit of a gamble. It's a 50-50. And as I've always said, the game does revolve around these kind of situations, these 50-50 scenarios in which you are kind of guessing. If Roy were to want to avoid the 50-50, he could have tried to dodge out, tried to tap dodge backwards and avoid the situation, but he decided to take the gamble and go for the parry, which, as we see here, pays off very well for himself. Gets the full RMB release with the purple dual blades off of the F. So right here we have another player looking to come in third party. Roy here, not having ultimate, is at a bit of a disadvantage. Uses his F to try and get out of the bad situation, try and create some space, but as we see here, enemy Tomolk's not having it. Enemy Tomolk just pretty much does to him what Roy had done to Ego. Going for this grapple is a little bit ambitious, you know? As you can see, the Tomolk ult, it can be pretty hard to see though. Going for this grapple is a bit silly, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you probably want to try and throw down your F next to you or below you to try and prevent the enemy Tomolk from doing any, or from gaining ground on you and actually trying to catch you out of the air. This grapple was, I mean, it's hard to really say. You know, it's possible that he just didn't see where the Tomolk ult ended or he panicked. You know, it's hard to say, but it is what it is. You know, third party not having ult at an ultimate disadvantage. It just it speaks for itself. So here we have Roy coming all the way down from above Celestra, all the way down into the desert to Jade Pond to try and get himself a decent reset after having respawned. All the way down to Jade Pond, gets himself a purple greatsword, not purple, blue greatsword, purple cannon, some blue armor. Not many resources, but he's in a pretty decent spot, having literally just respawned, you know. It looks like he's going to try and make his way upwards, back towards Celestra, and catch any people potentially respawning there. Considering that it was an area that he spawned in alone, it's highly likely that enemy players who have either died or are just rotating around the map might pass through and try and pick up some loot. Right. So here we have Roy looking at the map here, having rotated all the way from Jade Pond, all the way up here through Celestra, up this little plateau, all the way around here, looking for some loot, looking for some isolated fights. Because that's usually what you want to be looking for, isolated 1v1 fights, especially if you're confident in your own dueling ability, to allow yourself to pick up these kills, pick up these points where you can, and get these points to potentially allow you to qualify. But yeah, he's rotated all the way up here, missed the Gate of Yang, as for some reason, whatever it may be, he did actually disconnect from the game briefly. Luckily he didn't die or get spotted, but he does reconnect and seems to be looking to start up his next rotation here. Yeah, as you can see here, Roy is just looking to get some safe rotations around the map, looking for these isolated fights if he can to get those points. And here we have him spotting an enemy Justina. Looks like she's just traded with an enemy player. Somebody else down there as well. Quite a few, in fact. 3 people here, one with the red buff from the Gate of Yang. Oh, this Justina gets taken down. Getting third partied here. As you can see, oh, there's actually 4 people here. Yeah, this is exactly the reason. This is the perfect example of why you want to be looking for these isolated fights, as you can quite literally be surrounded by on all sides and just taken down with very little counterplay. Nothing that you can really do in these kind of situations when you're truly surrounded. So here, yeah, we can see Roy's just trying to buy himself some time, look for these potential picks. Oh, he manages to get over here and get himself that purple armor from the Justina. Again, using his F pretty early. Trying to avoid these 50-50s. Yeah, he manages to make it out, get himself that purple armor. He's just running around in this building. Trying to avoid any trades, I would say. Probably what his objective is right here. To avoid the trades, potentially get inside the realm of Yang, get himself that 1v1, and potentially get himself that that Morris buff and gold weapon, as well as get some kills with the third party. Are these grapples? He gets the uppercut. Lovely. Oh, gold greatsword. Get in that realm. Does he get in there? Probably full actually by now. Oh, lovely parry. That dual blade sap doing a lot of work. Goes for the ultimate here, preventing the enemy player from being able to dodge away and locking him down, secure himself that kill, having essentially just pushing his advantage really well there. And now, right here, does he go for it? Is he looking for it? It looks like he did briefly look for what I think he was looking for. But right here, some of you may know, right here are two firefly spawns. One of them being right here on this bush. I'm not sure if it's there. And another one being right here on this tree here. It looks like he did kind of look in that direction, but it wasn't really in the direction of where the firefly spawns. So I'm not sure if he actually was planning on doing that. My thought process was that once he got that kill, having used his ultimate, he was going to immediately go and run to the fireflies to try and get himself some ult charge back, so that if he does get caught in another fight, he doesn't have ult disadvantage. Very, very good strategy. Very optimal play. But it doesn't seem as though he did go for that. There is another firefly spawn, but I think it's just in the zone as well, so going for that, potentially risky, especially if someone's waiting around there. You don't want to be caught there. But yeah, it looks like he's just going to take a rest, chill, bide his time, and wait for the zone to move. As he's now sitting on 3 kills, I think? Yeah, 3 kills. Pretty solid for this stage of the game. 3 kills and reasonably high placement. That's already a pretty strong game. Pretty good game in terms of points. So at this point in the game, he doesn't really need to do anything, especially considering he has no ultimate. He doesn't need to do anything. All he needs to do is bide his time, make sure he doesn't get caught in a bad spot, and he should be fine. But yeah, he's looking over here to try and pick up some more resources. Go over here to the shop, get some bag upgrades. Potentially buy himself a weapon. I mean, I don't think he really needs to, but going for these jades, always really good in Immortal War, which is the tournament game mode, because the minimum rarity of the jades that you get from those lucky soul jade bags is epic, purple, so you're gonna get something good most of the time. So definitely worth it to gamble for those, I would say. Yeah, right here, Roy's got himself that purple cannon with meteor. Pretty strong weapon to be having at this point in the game as well. Splash damage, long range because of the meteor soul jade. Pretty good damage as well, considering it's a purple cannon. Pretty good weapon to have at this point in the game. Really good for third partying as well, because of that splash damage and charging up your ult. Let's see here. There was a player just here. He's looking to potentially poke him a little bit. Get himself that advantage that we talked about. Ooh. Very nicely done. Enemy to Malk. Goes for the F. Ooh. Not bad at all. Now, does he know about the other Firefly spawn? Does he know? I don't think he does. But yeah, let's quickly break that down. Just quickly. Right here. Gets his F off, goes for the grapple, which, quite frankly, is rather risky. If the other player had literally just looked up and grappled him, he could have gotten tagged for it. But instead, he does actually manage to get the grapple onto the roof, throws down his F, catches the enemy to Mulk. So, paid off, I suppose. But yeah, definitely a risk. He gets a big chunk of damage onto enemy to Mulk, goes for the uppercut, but doesn't manage to get it. Enemy to Mulk getting tracked really well. The enemy to Mulk also going for the overhold, baiting Roy into parrying. Doesn't actually release, but Roy trying to prevent himself from taking unnecessary damage or anything else like that, potentially getting put into a light attack combo. He goes for the ultimate, not only to avoid this, but also to lock down his opponent, since he input buffers it after his parry. Enemy to Mulk does virtually the same thing, because he gets, I'm not sure if he did get knocked back, I think he timed it just right so that he didn't get knocked back, but he goes in for the ultimate, does get the knockback, goes into a combo, but doesn't get much of a follow-up. I think he probably could have gone for an aerial LMB and then thrown his F, potentially extending the combo, but doesn't manage to do it. Roy armoring through the sandball, preventing the stagger, dodges forward, and then gets forced into parrying here because of the enemy to Mulk hold, because he doesn't have any stamina to move, doesn't have any stamina to avoid the situation and dodge. Is forced to hold yet again. Enemy to Mulk goes for the first charge parry. I'm not sure if the enemy to Mulk had stamina. I think he probably could have just dodged away, but instead he goes for the first charge parry, hoping that he releases, but he doesn't, and gets punished for it. And there you have RoyHiHi's 4th kill of the game. Very solid performance on game 1. Already secured at least 2nd place in this game. Definitely really happy about that, I would say. As you can see here, he's also playing around this three-ban zone, as it's commonly called. The statue that once activated creates a dome, preventing anybody inside of it from using their ultimate. Negating the ultimate disadvantage that he has currently after having fought, I think it was light hypernova. Yeah, looks like he's gonna just try and bide his time here, try and get his ultimate charge back and just... Right, so here we have enemy to Mulk coming in a bit closer. Roy losing a little bit of that health here. Enemy to Mulk taking a huge chunk of damage from the Moonbane here. It does manage to get a trade-off, but here, yeah, unfortunate here. Right, let's break this down quickly. I mean, off the rip, there's not too much to say. Roy takes a small chunk of damage. Enemy to Mulk's actually at an advantage, but goes for the pistol shot again. Roy looking to close that gap, trying to punish him for pulling out a ranged weapon that close to him. Enemy Tomahawk forced to dodge backwards straight into the Moonbane hit, taking a huge chunk of damage, and then forced on the back foot here. He does have Storm Stride though, so he is chipping down Roy just a little bit. Yeah, so Roy here doesn't expect the first charge release, expecting the overhold. Gets hit by the first part of the blue focus from Nunchucks. Although the enemy Tomahawk actually had anticipated that he would parry, so he tried to cancel it out with a grapple. If he'd, unless he expected him to use his F as well, and he just grappled out to shorten the animation and potentially get a reset. So Roy looking to push his advantage here, sees this Tomahawk charging. So in these kind of situations, it is a bit of a gamble. You know, it is a bit of a gamble, but Roy looks to take the gamble. Enemy Tomahawk also looking to take the gamble here. Releases the RMB, the vertical blue focus attack on Nunchucks. Going for that meter burn attack. Straight into Roy, grappling towards him. So right here, Roy, he could have potentially cancelled his grapple over by jumping or crouching. Potentially even shooting at him. But he looks to take the gamble and going for the grapple LMB, expecting that the enemy Tomahawk will cancel his blue focus hold and hold dodge in the other direction, potentially catching him at the end of hold dodge. And the enemy Tomahawk, he's just taking the risk. He's taking the risk, you know, because I mean he's taking a rather big risk, because not only could Roy parry the blue focus attack, but he could also simply jump cancel the grapple, and he would lose nunchuck meter or bar, whatever you'd like to call it, charge, in doing the first part of the attack, which could come in handy later on. As also another thing here, which I like to see here, Roy looks to swap to his greatsword in his inventory while being attacked, so that when he gets up off the ground, he can use the defensive properties of greatsword, the stone form, to prevent himself from taking any damage or mitigating some of the damage that he would receive if he gets caught on wake up. But he doesn't manage to swap to it, sadly. Goes for the tap dodge off of wake up. Goes for the hold. I'm not sure. I mean, going for this parry, I'd probably go for it. I'm not gonna lie. Parrying when you're this low is kind of the last ditch effort. You kind of really have to throw, like, just gamble for it, because if you don't and he does release in your face, you're going to die. If he doesn't release and you do parry, you can potentially dodge out after it, and that's even more after that. But sadly, he does release, doesn't get the parry, goes for the hold, and gets taken down here. Hongfly taking the win for the first game. But with all that being said, 4 kills and 2nd place in your first game of the day has got to feel pretty good, I would say. Pretty good. Hongfly though, holy, 7 kills, 1st place in his first game. That's insane. That's really good. But yeah, Roy, not a bad game. Pretty damn good game to start off the day, I would say. But yeah, that's it for game 1. 4 kills, just under 11k damage. Pretty strong start. Yeah, let's jump right into the next one. Right, and here we have game 2. So it's a Holoroth map. So there are a few different things that people like to pick on Holoroth. Things that can potentially survive in open places, as Holoroth, as a lot of you probably know, there's a lot of open space. Not too many trees around, not too many buildings around in certain areas, meaning that if you do get caught out in the open with a few people around you and you're at a disadvantage, you can get hunted and hounded and just killed without any counterplay, realistically. I mean, so if you have a character say for example, Zipping Yin, most recently added character, renowned for her ability to run and reset and stay mobile. You could be playing something like Zipping to play on this map, as a lot of people do tend to opt for. Justina also works very well. Takeda works too, because if you do commit to him, you are running the risk of getting 100 to 0'd. Some people say Tarka's pretty good on this map. I'm not sure if I really agree. I mean, he is good on this map because he can run, but at the same time, because there aren't any buildings in certain areas, even if you're running away, you can simply just get chased down. And because there's not much cover, you can always attract the attention of other players who happen to be lurking around in the vicinity. So, although yes, you can run, I wouldn't say Tarka's is anywhere near as strong as the other 3 characters that I mentioned. Or Takeda. I mean, Takeda depends on whether or not you have your ultimate up, but still. Usually when you're running around and you see a Takeda, you're going to assume, or it's usually best to assume, that he has ultimate available. Because if he does and you expect that he doesn't, you're in for a surprise, you know. You can get one shot. Takeda fun. But yeah. So here we have Roy opting to play Takeda on this map. Let's see where he looks to spawn here. I know where I would spawn. Don't tell me he spawns where I think he spawns. My boy, he does. So right here, I really like this spawn. Because although it's not in the gold zone, spawning right here or right here can be really, really strong, because there's 2 fireflies that spawn in this square, and you can grab them, grab one or grab both, grab a couple weapons, some armor, and run straight into Plumed with your ultimate available, or ultimate advantage on a lot of people who are fighting in Plumed. Having just spawned as well. So, yeah. So he goes for the second square. 2 other players also opt for that square with the fireflies in them, but it's a bit of a gamble. That's what happens when you choose your spawn location at the very last second. You do sometimes run into this issue where you click a spawn where nobody else is, and then all of a sudden 2 people spawn on top of you. It's not great. Yeah, let's see here. Rocking the glasses. Respectable. Why won't that go away? Well, there we go. So right here, this pathing, I don't know why he pathed in this direction. Because already he's lost about 10-15 seconds that he could have utilized to get loot, opting to break these boxes behind this house for some odd reason. Unless he's looking to not even bother going over there, which I don't see. I mean, I guess. Or maybe he's thinking that one of the players over there could have gotten both of the fireflies and he doesn't want to run into him when he doesn't have ult. But even then, it's more likely that one of the players is already, or that they're currently scrapping it out. One of them got one each and are fighting. At the very least, head over there earlier on to see if you can potentially pick up a kill. But he's going for the safer approach, which no one can blame him for in a tournament like this. You cannot blame him for that. Still, though, not what I would have done, I think. Oh, finds Atake there with his ultimate active and full purple armor. Not what you'd want to be running into at this point, so immediately disengages. Gives him the quick love tap. Biding his time, looking for his moment to engage. Ooh. Gets himself a purple spear. Does he get rubber banded? No, that's so unlucky. What? Oh my god. Good turnaround here. No. Oh no. That's so unlucky. Holy. That's so goddamn unlucky. So right here, off the rip, let's see. I'm pretty sure he does get rubber banded back into this. Gets himself the purple spear. Gets grapple LMB'd by nunchucks. Yeah, he does get rubber banded. So right there, you can see he goes for the R&B into tap dodge back, but gets caught and rubber banded back into the attack, uppercutted, chunked, and then shot as well by a different player. So off the rip, he gets put in a really bad spot, and then wanders over here after having used his F to try and disengage to pick up an armor that's actually empty. Christ. Very unfortunate. Gets caught by the grapple LMB on nunchucks. One of the strongest grapple LMBs in the game. Manages to get some space with that sliding uppercut. Does look to try and pick up the armor that somebody had left, but even if he had, it would have only given him a sliver more shield, which would not have saved him. That's just unlucky here. Very unfortunate. So we have Roy, having rotated around, having respawned, looked for some decent, semi-decent loot. Try and bring himself back into the game, chilling, sitting in a bush, and runs into this player. Goes for the F first, forced to pop his ultimate since the enemy F comes in. Has no stamina. Goes for the R&B. Using the dagger's movement ability pretty well. And I say again, third parties fought in an open space without the tools to reset means death. It's just unplayable at that point. Let's quickly go back and see. It's right here. Let's break it down. He hears the enemy player, sees him here, gets the half charge startup, tanking the initial CLMB from the enemy player. With dagger, of course, you can charge blue focus while in crouching state. Very, very strong mechanic for dagger. It's the only weapon in the game that can do that. Manages to get the half charge onto the enemy Takeda, goes for the 1-2, immediately dashes away, expecting, I would think, the enemy Takeda to use his F to try and take his turn back, or to prevent any further damage and prevent the gamble here. But he runs in here rather aggressively. It was a little bit of a mistake, I would say, as he goes in here, being dodged out. He's used one dodge, goes for a pistol shot, goes for another pistol shot. So he's running in here with a quarter of his stamina bar, having tried to gain more of an advantage using his ranged weapon, and try and prevent the enemy Takeda from healing or healing back his health that he lost. It's very, very aggressive. Like you're literally, he uses his entire stamina bar and then decides to go in. Stamina being one of the most important things in the game. It's a bit. I'm not sure if you call it aggressive or I don't know. I feel like he just didn't really think, you know. He goes in, goes for the initial light attack, gets half charged, loses his turn, but then is forced to use his F to try and take it back. Uses his F, goes for the light, instantly dodges, but gets caught at the end of it by the enemy Takeda's F3, immediately put into a worse situation and forced to ult. And he still has no stamina. Goes for the RMB into CLMB, which isn't actually a true combo. Soft true, allowing the enemy Takeda to soft combo break using his ultimate. Uses his last bit of stamina to go for a roll, and right here, I think quite frankly, because in the Takeda versus Takeda matchup, whoever uses their blade, their ultimate F first, ends up losing the trade, because the enemy Takeda can just respond in kind with their own, taking the turn back. So he didn't want to use his F, but at this point he's committed so much that he needs to do it. He needed to do it before the enemy Takeda even got close to him, because otherwise he's going to take a huge chunk of damage. He doesn't try and parry this because the enemy Takeda has his ultimate active, and he knows this, so quite frankly there's no point. I mean, I don't really know what he's doing here, quite frankly. Like, he doesn't try and parry, because what's the point? Enemy Takeda is able to use his ultimate blade to prevent the punish on a parry or anything like that. And at the same time, he doesn't want to use his blade to prevent the damage from taking place, because he knows the enemy Takeda can use his blade to take the turn back again. So he's kind of put himself in a really bad spot. Like, at this point, he's already lost the fight. Unless the enemy Takeda makes a huge error, it's over already. He does happen to take another chunk of damage from a third party, a musket shot, I think. But still, I mean, I think he just needs to try and commit. There's not much else he can do. Goes for the scale rush. Goes backwards on the LMB, releasing a bit early. Probably should have waited a bit longer if he was gonna send it backwards. Realistically, he should have just sent it forwards and tried to keep running. He's doing a good job of looking behind him. Right here, he wasn't sure, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty certain that he wasn't sure whether this was the same Takeda that he'd just been fighting, so he didn't know if he had ultimate up. And so he did one light and then delayed his second light because of the hesitation, expecting that the enemy Takeda would have simply used his ultimate F on him. So he tried to dodge, or thought about dodging preemptively, but then didn't, because he saw that the enemy Takeda was a different one. But yeah, he was put in a losing battle, all because all of the following ensued simply because, I don't know, was it greed? Was it blind aggression? Was it overconfidence? Or was it just, I mean, I don't want to say it, but was it just like that he just wasn't thinking? Like, because surely he knows this. He's on the world stage, you know, like, he knows these things. He knows that managing stamina is probably one of the most important things that you need to be doing. But he goes for this, you know. This is literally what lost him this fight. This going in with no stamina is what screwed him over. If he hadn't gone for that and simply gone for his own reset, Or potentially, instead of having gone for the pistol shots, gone into melee initially, instead of backing off and going for the pistol shots, which is always a good idea. But if you miss, then you kind of need to back off. But if you do hit it, then you can obviously chase them down again. But I don't know, going for this, having missed the pistol shots, and having used 2 chunks of stamina to do the pistol shots, and then going in with this little stamina, is just never a good idea. It's just not a good idea at all. This is what lost him the fight. And it is what it is, you know. It wasn't a good idea. You could say it was just confidence or overconfidence or blind aggression, or he panicked and wasn't really sure and didn't really think, you know. It is what it is, but that right here is what lost him the fight. Also the fact that he didn't try and use his F to salvage an already disadvantageous situation earlier on. But he wouldn't have been put in that scenario in the first place if he hadn't gone in with 0 stamina. But yeah, sadly that's it for RoyHiHi's second game there. But yeah, it is what it is. APF taking him down. Right, well, although I'd like to, I'd be very happy to go through and analyze APF going forward and watch the rest of the game. I think we're focusing on RoyHiHi here, so I'm gonna be swapping over to the next game. Yeah. Right, and here we are, game 3. Opting to play Justina. It is not a Firefly map. And looking at these spawn zones, rather spread out. I mean, kind of. Got 3 gold zones here. Got 2 up here. Wreckage being the biggest, of course, and the biggest city offering the most loot. Oddly enough, only having 2 players there. Let's see what he chooses. He goes for the... Oh. Okay. So, he swapped to that smaller zone. Oh, sorry. He swaps to this smaller zone at the last second, but then sees that another player had also swapped there as well. So then immediately tries to swap back over here. I mean, kind of in the same spot he was initially, but spawning over there, not a bad spawn. You've got the little boat, the boat on top of the scaffolding with the rare trove spawn underneath it, and a rare trove spawn on the actual boat as well. But he is in very close proximity to the other player. Although he does have a cliff right behind that to move around with, to potentially scale rush off of and make an escape if he needs to. I'm not sure if it's the best spawn, especially considering that it's not a Firefly map. So there is a Firefly spawn very close to that little area that he spawned on. But since it's not a Firefly map, it instantly loses its value as a spawn location. Somewhat surprising that the enemy player who also spawned here didn't try and cut off Roy's loot pathing by going in that direction. Although it's possible that the other player hadn't found anything remotely decent to fight Roy, so he couldn't do that. It looks like he's getting aggressive here. Both with blue armor. Roy is sitting on that purple greatsword though. Very, very strong weapon to have at this point in the game, considering that enemy player's not going to have too much melee resist or armor. But he gets chunked down here. Oh, and this parry. Okay. So right here, I can break this down real quick. Like pulls out the crossbow. This swap to range was definitely fine. It was definitely fine. However, right here, he swaps to range again. And although this is fine, you do have a purple greatsword. And with greatsword in particular, gaining priority over your opponent and gaining advantage in neutral is one of the win conditions for the weapon. If you can gain advantage, get the first hit essentially, and go in and apply pressure, greatsword does a lot. So right here, going for the crossbow again is not really what you want to be doing. Although he only has 2 grapples, going for a grapple in whilst the enemy player has got his pistol out is probably your best bet. So he does this, but he does this a bit too late and takes a chunk of damage. If he'd timed his grapple after the first whiffed pistol shot and caught the enemy player on his hold dodge, he would have been able to gain advantage and potentially even forced out the enemy Wu Chen's F, giving him an advantage in the fight. He goes in here, goes for the jump cancel on the grapple into an LMB, which is very risky. It's not really something you want to be doing with greatsword, although everyone does it. I do it. It's still very risky because you're taking a gamble here. You're taking a gamble. Goes for the grapple LMB, takes the pistol shot, jump cancels. He's kind of in a really bad spot here already. Either he goes for another grapple to try and avoid the situation entirely and potentially get a reset, or he takes the gamble by parrying this, going for the parry on this blue focus, and then if he does happen to get hit by the light attack, then he uses his F. But the fact that he chooses to go for the light attack, the aerial horizontal with greatsword, he's taking the biggest risk possible. He's expecting the enemy player to cancel his blue focus, and he's going to try and catch the tap dodge, or he's expecting the cancel into light and potentially stone form the attack. But if that's what he was doing, the second thing I just mentioned, he does this a bit too early. So if he'd gone for the parry on the first charge and he'd released, it's possible that he wouldn't have released, seeing the parry animation beforehand. He could have gone for the parry. If he does release, he gets the damage, a single hit damage as well, so none of the damage would have been mitigated by the combo breaker F of the Wu Chen. And if the Wu Chen hadn't released, then he could have potentially tap dodged, and if not, if he gets caught by the initial part of the blue focus, or if he doesn't see him stop his charge and go into a light attack, he can immediately press F, mitigating any potential damage that he could have taken. But instead he goes for this risk and he gets punished for it. He takes, what, just over 500 damage from a blue focus, probably purple nunchucks on the Wu Chen, and is instantly put on the back foot. And right here, being put on the back foot, not having priority on greatsword is not what you want, because as you're about to see, he doesn't manage to stone form the attack. But if he had done, even if he had stone formed the attack, he still would have taken a small amount of chip and would have been put on the back foot. Considering he has no armor and only 1 grapple, he's already in a really bad spot. But he takes this damage, gets hit by the pistol shot, another pistol shot, goes for the hold, but already enemy Wu Chen's on him with the quickness of the nunchucks, instantly closing the gap, forcing him into stone form. He does go for the parry, gets a trade with the light, tries to overhold him and force him into parrying, and protecting himself from a blue focus release, as he'd be able to stone form it. But releases just at the wrong time and gets parried and punished and killed for it. Sadly. It is what it is. But definitely a few mistakes there. One thing I would like to mention though is that having been taken out reasonably early in the last match, in the match before this one where he got really unlucky early on in Plumed Castle, getting rubber banded, third partied, swapping to an armor that was empty, managing to avoid his pursuer only to run into somebody else, another armor swap that was also empty right next to him in the and then afterwards having looted up, having rezzed, looted up, and tried to chill and try and find himself an isolated fight, makes a mistake, either out of whatever it was, you know, dying for it, getting taken out reasonably early in that game, going into this game having waited that entire time, watching these enemy players, it takes a toll on your mentality as a player, as a competitor. So coming into this game, no one would be surprised if his mental hadn't taken a bit of a hit from the previous game, you know. So still, making mistakes, we're all human, you know, it is what it is. But it's up to him here at this point on that day to not let it affect him, you know, not allowing himself to be affected by the mistakes or bad things that happen, unfortunate situations that he ends up being put in and losing out on potential points for, you know. It is what it is. At the end of the day, it is a battle royale game. And it's all about consistency. Especially in professional play, consistency is by far the most important thing. As long as you're getting a decent chunk of points on the board in the majority of the games, and then getting some pretty high point games in the rest of them, you're going to do well. Oh, another purple greatsword. I would love to have gotten that if I was him. Not sure how much greatsword Roy plays, but I guess we're about to see. Yeah. He's picked up a bounty, but he's not looking to go for it. He's looking to just rotate around, potentially get himself a little bit more loot, potentially get himself a purple armor, a cheeky purple armor. Although it's Immortal War, it is possible. I say that because in Immortal War you're far less likely to find purple armors, and you can't find gold armors or gold weapons by just looting. You have to what was that? I think you forgot he had a cannon. I've done that so many times. But yeah, you can't get gold weapons or gold armor without either getting them out of you can get gold weapons out of the Realm of Yang, having won it and getting that Morris along with the buff, and you can get gold weapons and armor out of stashes, out of those key stashes that you find. But yes, let's see what he looks to do here. Right, so here we have Roy. He's rotated up towards one of these Realm of Yang gates, and he's bumped into a player very close by who has a bounty on him, it seems, and there's another one behind that player as well. Looks like he's about to get engaged on. Player's charging a pistol at him. Looking to stay mobile, looking to try and get the Realm of Yang instead of taking a fight with all these players around him. Does manage to get a big chunk of damage onto that Takeda, who also who tried to get into the Realm of Yang to avoid having to fight for this reset, but it was already full. Oh, nicely done. Lovely. Well played here from Roy. Alright, so hold on, let me quickly break that down again. So right here, manages to catch the Takeda on the roof with the aerial LMB. Both of them on equal health. So right here, forced to use his F, right here, I think he hesitates. Right here, as I talked about before, going for priority, or going for prior with greatswords specifically, or especially, I would say, is extremely important. So right here, having come out of his F, I think he should have gone for the grapple, or should have been faster on it. It looks like he was going for it, but he just wasn't as quick on the trigger as the enemy player was. So he does end up losing prio, taking a bit of damage. Managed to get a good chunk of damage onto the Takeda though, with considering he's got a purple greatsword that does a lot of damage. So he actually evens it out with that light attack, and then manages to blue focus stone form the blue focus release of the Takeda. Enemy Takeda probably should have gone for the half charge to try and catch him after the initial LMB. But yeah, he doesn't opt to do that, and then does kind of get punished here because he's already used his F, so he can't mitigate the 50-50, is forced to tap dodge. I think he probably should have tap dodged backwards instead of diagonally backwards here, because it would have created more of a distance between him and Roy, who has a great sword and manages to take another chunk of damage from that light attack. Roy going for the R&B hold, knowing that the Takeda still doesn't have his F up, goes for the release, but the enemy Takeda manages to tap dodge into ultimate activation, preventing the blue focus from actually hitting him. Roy then immediately going for this ultimate activation, mitigating the stagger and the damage from Takeda's initial ultimate blade. Going for that LMB into dash, staggering the Takeda out of the blue focus, going for another light attack, manages to get it, goes for another dash, knowing that the blade's probably coming up soon, but the Takeda does manage to stall it out, avoid it, or prevent the Justina from avoiding it. Gets a small heal, but Roy, having one more dash left, goes in again, gets that stagger with the ultimate dash, and gets that light attack to finish him off. Very nicely done here. Mistake on both players' sides, but Roy managing to come out on top here. Right, so here we have Roy having rotated down from Celestra, having chilled a bit after winning that fight versus the Takeda. Tried to regenerate some of his ultimate, trading momentarily with this Wu Chen, but looking to get over here. Not looking to take that fight, especially with that ballista in close range. Both players going for the 1.5 hold into parry, expecting release. Roy looking to third party here. This little trade getting a cheeky chunk of damage, but to no avail, gets clanked off. Doing a good job of rotating around this terrain, scale rushing up, but does manage to drop down. Get a huge release onto this Wu Chen, caught unawares, forced to use his F, and then taken down. Blimey. Dual blades just doing what they do best, bursting people extremely quickly. The sheer amount of damage that you can output with these weapons is extraordinary, truly. But yeah, not too much to be said about that, realistically. Gets the drop down blue focus on an unaware opponent. Tech chases him down. Hits him with a blue focus on his F3 activation. He does look to come back in here and loot the body, but doesn't manage to get to it without getting traded on. Ooh, does take a huge chunk of damage here from this other player. Manages to get a lucky armor swap though. That is extremely fortunate for himself. But all these players, as you can see, not trying to commit too hard. and gain advantages for themselves without committing, all using their grapples effectively to secure range shots. Yeah, it looks like Roy, yeah, he's gonna get hunted down by this opponent. Does manage to get the heal off though. Multiple clanks. Oh, he does get the damage off though, forcing out the F of the Wu Chen. Potentially diverting the focus from himself to the enemy player. It doesn't look like it. The enemy Wu Chen's just still looking for blood. But the third party's come in now, noticing that the Wu Chen's desperate, and goes for him instead. Oh. Oh, no parry. And it looks like it's over for him. Does get a huge release though. And he does have desperation. Constantly sending these blue focuses backwards to try and deter any advancement, trying to buy himself some time, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to escape. Manages to get the scale rush off the short wall. Can he get an armor swap? No, he cannot. Extremely well played though. Almost manages to salvage a bad spot or bad situation for himself. Let's quickly see that again though. Forces to use his ultimate. Tries to gain some distance. Gets a chunk of damage. Forces the F. Actually at a health. No, actually no, he's not an advantage, but stops to pick up the Salak. If you can do this, it's always a really good thing. Giving yourself that defense boost is always going to be beneficial. The enemy Wu Chen uses his ultimate to escape. And the third party in Wu Chen manages to find Roy. I think he needed to parry here earlier. I think he uses his F. Roy uses his F far too late here. But as you can see, he does do a really good job of keeping the Wu Chen at bay here. Constantly turning these blue focuses. Manages to get this scale rush up. Slide the jump onto the wall. Very useful bit of tech there actually. If some of you aren't aware of it, sliding and then jumping and then immediately pressing horizontal attack button, LMB, whatever it may be, to instantly then scale rush is far easier and far smoother than trying to just jump from sprinting state onto a wall. But yeah, no, I think right here, he definitely, I think he probably should have gone for another grapple. Right here, goes for the overhold, and the enemy player playing nunchucks has some charge on them isn't worried about a blue focus being released into him, especially when he has health advantage. So right here, I think he should just use his F. He should just F immediately here, or he needs to take the gamble and go for the parry, because after tap dodge, I mean, he could have potentially parried after his tap dodge, but it would have been really tight. He might not have gotten it out, but going for the F is the safe choice here. Because of nunchucks, pretty much. It's all because of nunchucks. If the enemy player hadn't been using nunchucks, then he wouldn't have... he would have been in a better spot here. But because of nunchucks, because of the horizontal block, because of the health disadvantage that he has, he needs to commit his F here or go for the gamble with the parry. But he goes for the tap dodge and tanks all the damage. I don't think he could have parried, in fact. I don't think he could have. It was literally a frame in which he could have parried, and especially on ping, it's not always possible, which all the non-CN players are on. So, yeah, probably best to commit his F here, I would say. Takes a huge chunk of damage, gets immediately hit by a 1-2. After it, goes for a light, Enemy Wu Chen though manages to get the charge state off. Instant release. The release time on this blue focus is absolutely insane. And is already extremely low. He does do a considerable amount of damage considering he has purple dual blades and desperation active, but it's still not enough as we've seen. Yeah. And that's what it is. I mean, that's all it is, really. One moment of hesitation, one misstep can lead to death. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunate. Getting caught in that open space from earlier on is just death with all of these players around. Yeah. And that is what it is. Game 3. Yeah. And again, I would like to keep watching, but let's move on to Game 4. Hey, so I know you just heard me say we'll be moving on to Game 4, but during editing I realized that the first 3 games netted up to about an hour and 20 minutes, and I thought, wow, that's a lot. So I thought I'd split the first 3 and then the second 3 games into 2 different videos. So if you're looking to check out Game 4, 5, and 6, be sure to click on the video. I'm gonna try and put it here somewhere. I'm new to all this. But yeah, anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments below. But yeah, I hope you all have a great day or a great night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.